to make change towards creating communities of inclusiveness. And then we're all here tonight to support the LGBT youth in our community. And I want to share a little more about my experience at the partnership. So as I was thinking about tonight and preparing for this speech, I was trying to think of a trait or a characteristic that describes me. And I kept coming back to this eternal sense of optimism. People that know me, I've been labeled Utopia Chad every place that I've worked because I truly believe in that glass is always half full. And where did that come from? Who helped build that trait? For me, it was really simple. It was my parents. They were the ones who helped instill that trait in me. And so today, this is the first time I've shared my story publicly in a setting like this. And this is the time when I can take off my mask. And I didn't select the Batman mask just for Jesse Heffernan, because he's a huge comic fan. But I selected Batman because he's one of the only superheroes that has no real superhero powers. He can't fly, he can't shoot spider webs, he doesn't have a cool shield like Captain America. Sure, he has lots of money and really cool toys, but he doesn't have any really superhero powers. So tonight I want to start and share with you my story. When I was 6 months old, my parents dropped me off at the babysitters. Normal routine, everyday situation that happens all over the country. The only thing is, my parents never came back. They abandoned me and left me with who became my foster parents, Ruth and Claire Otland. At the time, they were in their early to mid 60s. And imagine taking on raising a 6-month-old baby. What I came to understand is I was not the first. Ruth and Claire had 2 kids of their own. One went on to become a doctor. One worked in manufacturing his whole life. And I was child 29. And they did all of this without a dime of financial support. Some kids would stay for months. Some kids would be there for a few weeks. And my parents would provide them with food, clothing, shelter, education, and an environment full of unconditional love. And that's where I got my sense of eternal optimism. Now, that wasn't true for all aspects of my family, and I didn't have that unconditional love with other relatives. I remember one family Thanksgiving, and we're all gathered together, and after the meal was over, everybody starts clearing the table and piling up the dishes, except for the dishes that belonged to my cousin Mark. His dishes were held out separately. And just after Mark left, the relative said, "We need to boil some water to wash Mark's dishes because he's gay." As someone who was sitting there already knowing that I was gay, that was the start of putting on some of the masks. Then we all have had our own different school experiences, and I know what it's like to be bullied at school. Believe it or not, I had a severe stutter and a really intense lisp as a child. And I faced that stigma of going to speech therapy 3 times a week and having kids walk up to me and say, "Hi, Chad," because that's what I sounded like. I still can hear those voices to this day. Another place where I experienced some bullying was in everyone's favorite place, the ride home on the school bus. And these are supposed to be neighbors, friends that live around where you're at, but it wasn't that safe place. I remember getting on the bus one winter day, going to my normal seat, sitting down, and looking up, and on every window of the bus was the word fag, faggot, queer. That was my ride home that day. And I got home, and I told my mom, and she gave me a big hug and said, "We're gonna fix this. Know that those people don't know you, and people are taught to hate. That's not what we do at our house." I also faced the mask of religion, as many people do. And my family, we grew up in a little country Lutheran church where the family that I was raised in, Ruth and Claire, were some of the founding members, and their parents went there. And it was that impact of hypocrisy that happened. And I remember one Sunday we were at church, and with only being in a small little church, everybody has their own pew, and you know if they're not here, that something must be going on. And so all of a sudden in walks this family wearing jeans. Mom, dad, 2 kids wearing jeans. And you know what the church did? They flipped out. How dare you show up wearing jeans in the house of the Lord? Where's your best Sunday best clothing? And you know what my dad did in that moment? He stood up and he said, "Where are we? Who are we to judge? That might be the only clothes those people had. That might be their best pair of jeans. What happened to just as I am and accepting people for who they are?" That was the last day my dad stepped foot in that church until he went back for his funeral. But that voice of standing up and speaking out and having that sense of compassion is something that I carry with me. My mom, Ruth, passed away when I was just 14 years old. So I lost her at a very young age, and I thought all hope was gone. I then moved to Atlanta, where one of the other kids that they had raised took me in and said, "Ruth and Claire helped me when I was a kid and I needed it most. It's our turn to pay it forward and help Chad." So I spent high school in Atlanta. And then Claire had suffered from a tear into the aorta and a long battle with Alzheimer's. And my dad passed away when I was 21. So at this moment, not seeing a future for an openly gay man, I had no role models. There were no visionaries out there saying, this is what a healthy, successful relationship looks like. I put on the ultimate mask, and I went back in the closet. So I caved into those societal norms. I met a woman in college. We dated for several years. I shared with her some of my past challenges, but I said that was in the past, and this is who I am now. We were married in 1994. I was only 22. In 2000, our daughter Abigail was born, followed 2 years later by my incredible son Josiah. From the outside looking in, I had everything that society deemed normal. But what I realized is my ex-wife was simply a good friend. But honestly, after 10 years of marriage, I can't tell you her life's goals, her biggest dreams, her greatest fears. And for me, the ultimate moment was when Abby was 4, and I'm sitting on the couch of our 1760s restored farmhouse in Charlottesville, Virginia, and Abby comes to me, looks me in the eyes and says, "Daddy, what's wrong? You're not happy." That was the turning point when I realized that I could not live this double life anymore. And it was time to start living a life of authenticity, so I came out of the closet at the age of 31. Also at this time, I happened to find out what true love was. And that's when I met my partner, now my husband, of almost 10 years we've been together, Jeff Amstutz. And together we agreed that the circumstances were challenging, but we were committed to each other and we were moving forward. Needless to say, this was not easy, and I know it would go against a lot of societal norms and turn things upside down. And this is where I understand and got a real education of how lack of education when it comes to LGBT issues can truly make an impact. And my ex-wife thought that because I was gay, I was attracted to every single male, including my son. So, at the advice of my therapist, at the advice of my attorney, because she was so insistent, I went through the pedophilia test that's administered in the criminal justice system. At the end of this grueling process, you get a nice 6-page report, and of course my pedophilia score was 0. And I said, let's just give my ex-wife the last page. And the last page said, my pedophilia score is 0, and Chad is attracted to Caucasian men that are tall with dark hair. My husband is 6'2", Caucasian, with dark hair. So it's pretty reliable. But one of the things that you find is even though you choose to live that life of authenticity, there are speed bumps along the road of life that happen. Because people are not all educated. People are taught to hate. People have those fears. And even in Appleton, Jeff and I are walking down the street one night, just out to have dinner and have fun, and 2 guys go walking by and say, hey fags, the gay bar's down this way. Another time, Jeff and I were with my kids, and we're just out having ice cream, and we're in Pennsylvania and having a great time, and we walk into this little restaurant, and all of a sudden, every single head turns and watches us. And we just sit down, have a great time, then we start looking over, and seeing people looking at us, and then they start praying. And anytime we would get up to go to the restroom, the whole restaurant would follow us. So it's important to understand that those speed bumps happen, but what's important is learning resiliency and remembering that unconditional love that you were taught. Another key component of living that authentic life is taking time to invest in you. I worked with the most amazing psychiatrist who specialized in working with members of the LGBT community. And she helped me through the amazing process to remove my mask that I'd worn for 10 years to live that authentic life. In addition, I also worked with an amazing professional coach here in our community named Shipra Seafeld. And this is where I get to my passion about organizations. And every effective organization has a clearly defined mission and corresponding values. And I'm convinced that in order for anyone, LGBT, straight, to live an authentic life, you need to know what your personal mission statement is. And my personal mission statement is to inspire, empower, and support others in pursuit of their dreams. My mission statement is to inspire, empower, and support others in pursuit of their dreams. And it gives you that North Star. It also forces you to look and make a lot of changes. In work, in relationships. Sometimes it's time to end relationships. Sometimes it's time to, I like to say, return some friends back to the community. Because not all of those friends are for you all the time. And you can break those bonds and you can return them back to the community so they can spread their negativity in other places where you don't need to feel it. I also find that it's important in personal relationships as well as professionally. 2.5 years ago, when I made the transition to work for Children's Hospital Wisconsin, I was looking for that values-driven, purpose-driven, mission-driven organization, and I found it. I'm sitting in orientation at Children's, and they're talking about, we have this concept called RAVE. And RAISE stands for respect and value everyone. It's that simple. Whether that's your coworkers, that's your clients, that's patients in our hospital, it's about respecting, valuing everyone. And I'm thinking, this is an amazing culture. And then 6 months later, they said, we're going on this culture journey to make things even better. So out of a system of 5,000 people, not counting physicians, they selected 9 of us, and I was fortunate to be one of them, to lead our culture-shaping work that we do on a monthly, weekly basis at Children's. And as part of this work, I get to be my authentic self. I start off the presentations talking about Jeff and the kids and showing pictures of them and telling my story that I shared with you earlier in a condensed fashion. And about a month ago in Wausau, when I was at our facility there sharing the story, I had someone come up to me after the first day and said, wow. She told me that she is 61 years old, no one at work knows she's gay, and no one knows that she's had a partner for many years. So she came up and said, I applaud your courage and authenticity to be you and live that at work. But this is why I get to the point about philanthropy and why I'm so passionate, not just because I'm fundraising Chad and development director for Children's Hospital Wisconsin and Catalpa Health, but I can truly say that what I do every day is I'm in the business of saving lives. And I want to share with you a recent story that happened at Catalpa Health through the power of philanthropy. So we all know that access to mental health services has been a tremendous challenge in our community, especially for our kids. And prior to the formation of Catalpa Health, and even when Catalpa first opened, wait times for appointments skyrocketed to 60 days. That doesn't work if you're a parent with a child that has a mental health challenge or a situation that they're dealing with. You need the right care at the right time when you need it. And just a few weeks ago, at Catalpa, we've been able to open the Access Center. And the Access Center provides same day or next day crisis appointments and priority appointments in 5 days. We got a call a couple weeks ago. A kid came home from school. It was a very traumatic day. His parents were seriously concerned about his mental state at that moment and what he might do. They called Catalpa at 5:45. The staff said, we're here for you, get here when you can. They all stayed late that night to help this family get the care they needed. 2 days later, mom called back and said, I don't think my son would be here if it wasn't for Catalpa. That's the impact that philanthropy can have. That's how it aligns around my personal mission statement to inspire, empower, and support others in pursuit of their dreams, to make a philanthropic investment in our community. And what's important, no matter where you work or what you do, you impact and connect with people every single day. We are fortunate to be living in such a time of social change where marriage equality has finally come to Wisconsin. And marriage equality is sweeping the country, where my husband Jeff and I can get legally married, surrounded by 200 of our closest friends. We planned the wedding in 5 days. We did a white party theme, everybody accessorized with the color of the rainbow, and it was phenomenal. The people that were there just to support us. So a lot of people say, we have marriage equality. We're done with this whole gay rights thing, right? No. That's like saying ending segregation did not create a nation without racism. Implementing marriage equality does not create a society of inclusiveness. So we need to come together to expand our definition of equality and inclusiveness. It is not about tolerance. Tolerance is one of my least favorite words. Do not ever say you tolerate me, or any of my friends, or anyone that identifies as LGBT. It's about being welcome and inclusive for everyone. And we all need to support everyone regardless of their sexual orientation or gender identity. and treat them with the same level of human dignity that we would treat anybody else in our society. The LGBT community, though, still faces many barriers. There are racial barriers within the LGBT community, the stigma itself. There are socioeconomic, class, and status barriers within the gay community. Also, the prevalence of mental health challenges and issues in the gay community is very prevalent. And of course, we've all seen too many stories about violence. But we need to engage and support and rally our allies. And this is why I'm so passionate about the work of Include. And it is an initiative that is co-led and formed from the community with a combination of LGBT community members as well as straight allies. And having that power of the straight allies stand up and say, this is a matter of human dignity. This is what we need to do. We want our community to be welcome and inclusive. But we need to encourage, foster, and create that sense of inclusiveness. We need to all take off our masks that we own, and we all need to start to dream. And one of the things I had the opportunity to do was to participate in one of the LGBT partnership meetings a few weeks ago. And I got to sit down and meet the most amazing youth in our community. I was inspired by their resiliency. I was overwhelmed by their courage. And I was moved by the troubles and challenges that they face. They talked about fighting homelessness. They talked about being sexually assaulted. They talked about, my school puts on this mask of saying we're all anti-bullying, but in reality, we're not. And it still happens, and it's still prevalent. And then so Jesse and I had a chance to talk about this a little bit more, and people think, wow, the LGBT partnership is great, it's there for prevention. No, we're in the backside of this working after the harm has already been done and the masks have been put on. But the work of the partnership is so important because this is that one place where our youth can be themselves, feel accepted, not judged, and connecting with the support from their peers. I know growing up, I sure wish I had an LGBT partnership to go to. I didn't have that option. But thanks to Goodwill and the generous donors who support the partnership, youth in Green Bay and the Fox cities have those resources. And we are all part of the solution. So I encourage you to accept the challenge, to speak up and to speak out. Whether you're a member of the LGBT community or an ally, your voice and your actions matter. So as I think back to that eternal sense of optimism that my mom instilled in me, and that utopia Chad that I have every day, people often ask me, how can you be so optimistic with all the challenges and the loss that you face? And I say, it's really easy. I did not choose to be abandoned. I did not choose to be bullied. I did not choose to be gay. I was loved unconditionally for who I am. Every day, I make choices. We all make choices. I choose my mood, I choose my actions, and I choose how I will show up for others. Every day, I choose to dream and to be my authentic self. And I want to leave you with this quote. And this is something that my mom used to always say to me. Chad, shoot for the moon. Even if you miss, you'll still land among the stars.